Hey, welcome back everybody. Happy Thursday it is. I've got an update for you on this ongoing severe weather outbreak today, as well as kind of what the rest of the storm system is going to do as it finishes crossing through the country. And that'll really be all we talk about in today's video. I am, again, on a little bit of a time crunch as it is very early in the morning, and unfortunately I have class very early on Tuesdays and Thursdays, so just the way it is. But either way, we are going to get a lot of important information to you, including some of the trends we've seen overnight in the models that I think is really going to up in the risk for tornadoes this afternoon for some folks that maybe thought they might have been at a lower risk yesterday. So again, definitely going to discuss that in today's video. Now, if you haven't already subscribed, definitely consider doing so. Like the video if you like it, and of course comment, let me know where you're watching from and what you're seeing out in your neck of the woods. A little bit of a surprise here in Charlotte this morning, a lot less rainy than maybe some people might have thought, and definitely let me know if there were any surprises in your forecast as well. With all that said, though, let's go ahead and jump on into that forecast so we can go ahead and kind of start diving into this. So starting off with current watches, warnings, and advisories, you'll notice kind of where that low pressure is. It's not hard to find with all of these wind advisories in those kind of beige colors on your map. Again, low pressure is currently centered really right over much of Tennessee right now, and will eventually throughout today, tomorrow, and through the rest of the weekend kind of move up into the Ohio River Valley, eventually the Northeast, and finally up into eastern Canada. But before we get there, again, we've got to get through severe weather today, very windy conditions today, tomorrow, and even into the weekend for some folks, and kind of just some other problems, including some very heavy rainfall as well. Now, satellite imagery to me is pretty amazing this morning. If you take a look at it, just look how sharp this cutoff is from kind of some of these cloud cover, or some of this cloud cover to no cloud cover. In fact, I'm going to pause it right here and just look at this. I mean, from just one town over in western North Carolina, you might be under this kind of big area of kind of convective clouds, and then on the other side, not really much at all. And you might think, okay, well that's nice, we're clearing out quickly today. Unfortunately, though, that's going to be problematic for a lot of folks. And in fact, we haven't seen nearly as much rain this morning as maybe we had expected, kind of in this circled area on your map from maybe the Greensboro area down towards Charlotte, Greenville, Spartanburg. It has been quite a dry morning, and a lot of that convection stayed pretty far south yesterday. And in fact, I noticed that yesterday evening. I was looking at that, that bow echoing of storms that we talked about, that MCV, and I said, well, this is already pretty far down south, even over the Gulf. I'm not sure this is really going to make it very far north into the Carolinas, and sure enough, here this morning, we're seeing some of that clearing already, and that's going to spell trouble for this afternoon as a secondary line of some convection fires off kind of back towards the Appalachia chain and eventually crosses the mountains. And by the time we get to 5 o'clock this night, those storms could become supercellular, begin to rotate, and cause some problems for the I-85, I-40 corridors of North Carolina, upstate South Carolina, and then northward even, well up into Ohio as well. So do not let your guard down today. In fact, I'm still waiting on the latest SPC outlook, and maybe I'll kind of try to pull it up on the dot and see if it's arrived, but I would not be surprised if we get upgraded back to a slight risk in the Carolinas, maybe even an enhanced risk during the afternoon update if current observations warrant that. So again, just know today is really uptrended, I think, for a lot of folks, and you can see that on radar, as I mentioned. Again, over a big section of Virginia, North Carolina, and upstate South Carolina. Just look at this lack of rainfall we're seeing right now. That is really going to allow the atmosphere to destabilize. In fact, we could have seen severe weather today even if we had some of that morning rain, if it would have just moved out kind of by 10, 11 o'clock. Here I am recording this at 7 a.m. And again, very little amounts of precipitation are along the I-85 corridor. So got to watch out for that. Again, trending in kind of the wrong direction here for severe weather for you folks. And you'll notice back here, just look at all of this precipitation, all this wind energy that is going to move eastward into this potentially very moisture-rich sector by the time we get to this afternoon. And again, just kind of ingredients that you don't necessarily want to see come together. And just another map I wanted to show you here. I normally don't show this one, but I think, again, it's very important to look at the overall synoptic pattern that we're looking at to kind of then dive into who exactly is going to see that severe weather threat. And here it is. Here's that low pressure right over Kentucky and Tennessee, as I kind of mentioned earlier. And, here are some of these cold fronts, and these are what is going to be the trigger for that precipitation. This first cold front here, again, causing some of that heavier precipitation down south towards Florida and southern Georgia, while to the north, again, this kind of, or I guess back towards the west, that secondary cold front eventually this afternoon is going to lead to more firing up of storms, and that will be the problem. Another thing I want you to notice is kind of look at some of these warm fronts here. This warm sector is starting to lift northward, and specifically this first warm front, however far north that gets this afternoon, is really going to pay huge dividends in exactly how much severe weather we see to the south. Again, latest models have really uptrended some of those instability numbers for this afternoon, and I think that's for good reason. All right, I'm very quickly going to refresh this to see if we have a new day one outlook. Not quite, so we're still going to have to use the old one. I do apologize, but again, kind of just unfortunately the time crunch we're on. So anyway, though, again, we do have an enhanced risk of severe weather already up for Ohio, and that is a place we've been pretty confident the past couple days. We were going to see severe weather, and I'm still quite confident in that. Again, kind of in this area of southwest Ohio, even portions of West Virginia, very likely to see strong storms today. That does include the threat of a tornado or two, probably even a couple, I would imagine. Another area we have a slight risk is down here into Georgia and Florida. In fact, if anything, I would say that the threat down there has maybe stayed kind of flat, if not even decreased a little bit. I think straight line wind is really going to be the bigger threat more than anything else down here. But as I mentioned, it's kind of this area in between that's in this marginal risk, from southern Virginia, kind of Danville down towards Greensboro, Winston-Salem, Charlotte, Concord, Greenville, Spartanburg, Cherokee, kind of these areas in here. I want you to really pay attention. I know we're only on a marginal risk in this map, but again, things have kind of trended in that direction that I would not be surprised at all to see this upgraded to a slight risk, this afternoon and maybe even later this afternoon, potentially even a enhanced risk should those surface observations show clearing on the cloud deck and those shear values begin to move in. So again, it could be a dangerous day for a lot of folks, and I don't want you to let your guard down. Now, either way, again, whether they upgrade it or not, there's already a tornado threat on the map from Ohio all the way down to Florida, with, again, even a 10% area being introduced here in that enhanced risk that we looked at. So, again, tornado threat, very real today. It is something we need to watch out for and just kind of be prepared for. And again, even that 2% chance of a tornado within a 25-mile radius stretching all the way down into Florida. Again, though, as I've mentioned many times before, do not let your guard down. Upstate South Carolina, Piedmont and North Carolina, along the I-40, the I-77, and the I-85 corridors. And I'll show you why here in just a moment as we start looking at these models. But nonetheless, tornado threat, very real today. All right, so let's time this out a little bit. Let's talk about it. Let's dive in. This is our latest high-resolution rapid refresh model, or at least our latest extended run of it, but I'm going to go ahead and use it. I think it's doing a pretty good job. In fact, look at kind of where precipitation is on this map. Look down here. Look at this shield of rain here. Look at kind of some of this, shielding of rain here, and then look at kind of that clearing in between. So look at that, and then we'll go back to our radar imagery, and I'll even pause it here at the end. Oh, I guess we'll kind of drag it. There we go. And, this is basically what it looks like this morning. We've got this clearing in between. We've got this big area of stratiform rain kind of down into the low country of South Carolina, down into southern Georgia, the Florida Panhandle, with, again, some stronger storms specifically at the Panhandle itself. And then this shield of kind of scattered rain back up into the Ohio River Valley. So high-resolution rapid refresh model doing a great job of initializing correctly this morning. And, again, that's one of the reasons we're going to use it. And oftentimes, I think it handles these sorts of setups all right. So let's go ahead and move this ahead into time a little bit. Now, you'll notice kind of what begins to happen this afternoon. This is about 2 o'clock, and kind of look at how we get this surface low to kind of form at the surface and become a little bit stronger over eastern Kentucky here, western West Virginia. Now, this is going to be very important. Look at what happens right down along that secondary cold front that's going to form along this low pressure. We're starting to get some of this kind of kidney bean look. We got 1 cell, 2 cell, 3 cell, 4, again, kind of lining up here from the Tri-Cities of Tennessee, Jefferson City, Johnson City, southbound into western North Carolina through Asheville into the Oconee-Pickens County area of upstate South Carolina. And this will be the start of it. Again, this is going to be about 2 o'clock, and at this point, we've had plenty of time without rain really falling to kind of juice up the atmosphere a little bit. That low-level jet bringing in that moisture and warm air, going to destabilize things, and plenty of wind shear on the horizon. So again, just kind of watching as that happens. At this point, though, in the afternoon, still just kind of some rain falling up in Ohio, and we'll have to watch if that really kind of affects this destabilization process. Could lower the severe weather threat a little bit up there, and again, kind of maybe move it to the south a little bit here in this circled area on your map. Now, very quickly, I'm going to take a sounding here in the Greenville-Spartanburg area, as again, I think this is an area that could get in on some of that severe weather early on, and let's kind of analyze this a little bit. So, taking a look at the hodograph, again, we've got that curvature in there, and this is definitely more of a speed shear setup, but even a little bit of directional shear. You'll notice kind of starting with surface winds out of the south-southeast, and then eventually turning out of more of the southwest and eventually west. So, we do have that turning of wind with height, and same thing with speed that is speeding up as we get higher in the atmosphere. Now, taking a look at the thermodynamic or the skew-T log P diagram over here. Again, temperature at the surface is about 74 degrees, dew point of about 67. So again, there is moisture there. High 60s for dew points. That's definitely in the threshold for severe weather. That LCL is at a low enough height here that, those cloud bases are not going to be very high off the ground. So again, able to kind of maybe grab some of that rotation from the surface and could turn it into a tornado. Another thing I want you to note here is look at these CAPE values. These are way higher than we thought they would be yesterday. Some of our models are now pushing into 2,000, 2,500 joules per kilogram here for the thunderstorm fuel values. Again, that is more than enough, especially in this part of the country with these kind of wind profiles to cause severe weather, including a couple of isolated tornadoes. Also, 3 CAPE value here coming in at 206. That is definitely more than enough as well to kind of pull that rotation from the surface into the cloud deck. So again, definitely something we need to watch out for. One more thing I will also note is look at this injection of dry air at about 600 millibars. Now, while that is a lot of dry air, what that is going to help to do is prevent this from becoming a line or QLCS of storms. This is going to be more of a discrete cell setup. But we will be fighting some of that dry air. If anything in this part of the country, I think that's the real limiting factor today, is that map I just showed you, that dry air kind of in the mid layers of the atmosphere. Is that going to prevent these thunderstorms from really rising, becoming tall, and tapping into that wind shear in the upper levels of the atmosphere? Or are they going to be able to fight it off a little bit, and are we going to be able to kind of juice up that column or saturate the column a little bit? That'll be a big question. But again, that's about 1, 2 o'clock this afternoon in the upstate of South Carolina and western North Carolina. Now here we go later on, things now increasing further to the north as well. You'll notice that warm front at this point pulling pretty far north here, and now look at these line of storms again from West Virginia all the way down back into the Carolinas. And again, these are kind of pretty discrete cells, and this is getting into peak heating of the day. If we move this into 22Z, again, just look at this, especially down into Virginia and North Carolina. One cell, a couple cells here, a cell here, a cell down here, back into the upstate, back over into kind of the Fayetteville area a little bit. Again, trending in that direction, and these cells have that kidney being looked to them just on this future radar. So something that is definitely worth noting here. And here we go into about, the time the sun is kind of beginning to want to set a little bit here, about 7 o'clock p.m. Eastern time. And just look at this line of storms here, again, with the likelihood that they could produce tornadoes. Now, I'm going to take another sounding here. Let's take one up into West Virginia first. We haven't taken one here yet. And you'll notice, let me actually pick a different sounding kind of out ahead of these storms a little bit more, see if we can get some of that CAPE. So yeah, again, up here, this is something that I kind of mentioned, although the enhanced risk is further to the north today. Look at some of these CAPE values and kind of some of these thermodynamic profiles. While the wind value is impressive, and again, these photographs are more than conducive enough for tornado genesis, we're going to be lacking some instability up here, I think. Again, a lot of that prefrontal rain or that stratiform rain in front of kind of the actual low pressure system itself could really limit CAPE up here. And that's why, in my mind, at least, I think that tornado threat is likely shifting a little bit more to the south today. But either way, again, the Storm Prediction Center still feels strongly, that we could see some strong storms up into Ohio as well. So, again, don't let your guard down out that way. Now I'm going to take one more sounding again down here into kind of central North Carolina, kind of near Uwharrie National Forest, kind of near Albemarle. And again, noticing here, same thing that we kind of saw earlier, that very impressive curvature in the skew-T. And again, those CAPE values a little bit lower in this sounding, about 700 joules per kilogram, but still high enough that we need to watch out this afternoon. So again, kind of impressive stuff here. The good news is, though, I think once we get into the overnight, past about 10, 9 o'clock, some of these storms should lose that thunderstorm fuel, and while still having this kind of broken segmented line of storms from West Virginia down to North Carolina, again, losing that instability, so should begin to die off just a little bit. And then from there on out, it's just kind of scattered storms and scattered rain showers throughout the overnight tonight before waking up Friday morning, and we're really clearing out in the Mid-Atlantic and Ohio River Valley, minus some scattered showers over Ohio, Indiana, Kentucky, and West Virginia tomorrow morning, and into tomorrow afternoon. And watch out again tomorrow afternoon, because I wouldn't be surprised to see some more convection try to fire with this upper level low. Again, this very cold pocket of cold air kind of moving on in. And if I just take a sounding with some of these kind of showers, so it look to be kind of convective in nature, yeah, definitely could see some interesting stuff tomorrow. Maybe some grapple, maybe some sleet, and some of those higher elevations would not surprise me with kind of such a large gap between our dew point and our temperature here on this map. So again, kind of interesting stuff there tomorrow afternoon. So don't let your guard down with some of those as well. And those will continue to work on through during the overnight Friday before finally clearing out Saturday morning throughout much of the Mid-Atlantic and Ohio River Valley. Alright, this video is already going way longer than I hoped it would, so I'll try to kind of speed this up a little bit for you, just so, again, I can get to class on time. But, again, maximum updraft helicity today here through the Mid-Atlantic. Noticing we do still have the forecast here for some rotating updrafts to occur. Again, that just tells me these storms likely rotating. Could see some tornadoes out of that as well, as we've mentioned, but, again, more of the same. One more thing I'm going to mention, again, this is the big driver that has kind of changed the forecast a little bit today for me, and these are those CAPE values. Look at this, back into upstate South Carolina, again, 1,500 to 2,000 joules per kilogram of CAPE, more than enough to produce some strong storms, especially with those wind profiles. So again, just looking at that CAPE plume pulling northward, becoming more impressive over the Carolinas than maybe expected, while also being slightly less impressive than maybe expected originally over Ohio. So I really do think that threat is shifting south, more towards Virginia, North Carolina, and South Carolina this afternoon and evening compared to maybe Ohio, West Virginia, and Pennsylvania that some might have thought yesterday. So just kind of the main point I want to give there. And then final map for the Mid-Atlantic, wind gust. It's going to be gusty this afternoon. So here we go. Very widespread wind gust ahead of that front through much of the Carolinas and throughout the Mid-Atlantic. Dies down a little bit in the evening hours, but then picks up again tomorrow morning and especially tomorrow afternoon. A very windy day. Be prepared. Could see some power outages. Again, these are wind gusts. Could be hitting 40, 45 miles an hour through South Carolina and even through much of the Mid-Atlantic. 30 to 35 mile an hour gusts are more than likely here for our Friday afternoon, and could even continue a little bit into Saturday morning as well, especially here into the higher terrain. So something to talk about, and again, we'll touch on that more tomorrow in that video. All right, going down into the southeast, again, going to be more of just a single line of storms here from Savannah down south into Florida. Again, not going to spend too much time on this, but straight line winds and a couple embedded QLCS tornadoes are definitely possible with this setup during this afternoon, crossing Orlando during about 1, 2 o'clock, eventually into Fort Myers about 4 o'clock, and then finally kind of dying off before getting through the Miami area this evening. So again, straight line winds, main threat with that line of storms through Florida this afternoon. However, some stronger updrafts are not out of the question here. Again, anywhere from the low country of South Carolina through southern Georgia and back into the Big Bend area of Florida. All right, wind gusts here, also going to be gusty this afternoon, especially with that line of storms, but not nearly as bad, I think, tomorrow afternoon, especially over Florida. You'll notice most of those wind gusts back up towards Georgia and the Carolinas and Alabama, as we kind of already looked at on the last map. So, again, just going to quickly breeze on through that so I can get through this in time. All right, northeast, last place we'll talk about very quickly. Again, today, not really severe weather threat, just some good old-fashioned rain. So this is getting into this evening. Again, plumes of moisture kind of just pulling northward out of the Mid-Atlantic. Pockets and rounds of moderate to heavy rainfall through Pennsylvania, New York State, New Jersey, and kind of just the rest of New England here as well. That'll continue overnight tonight. This is about midnight. A little bit after that here, you'll notice, again, some rain falling through much of the northeast. And again, could be heavy at times, maybe a couple rumbles of thunder as well. And that continues into tomorrow morning, just rounds and rounds of precipitation throughout the day Friday, becoming a little more scattered in nature through the afternoon and evening hours. Before overnight Friday into Saturday, that pocket of cold air moves in, and look at this, changing over some rain, from rain to snow, potentially into upstate New York, even back into kind of just western New York there as well. Could see some of that transition. Accumulations of snow will be very low, very kind of hard to come by, if you will. And again, by the time we get into Saturday afternoon, changing back to just scattered rain showers with some higher elevation snow. But again, not really too many impacts from the winter weather that's going to come with that. Wind gust here, a bit of a different story. Again, going to start to get windy this afternoon, get windy tonight, and stay windy overnight. In fact, look at some of these winds just offshore, kind of pushing in towards Long Island. Could be gusting up near 60 miles an hour, not out of the question here in coastal New Jersey, coastal Delaware, and into Long Island. again overnight tonight into tomorrow morning, and eventually into later into tomorrow morning. Those wind gusts shift off towards Nantucket, over towards Montauk, and just kind of the areas here of coastal southern New England. So again, very windy day tomorrow, even inland gusting up near 50 at times. Not out of the question for our Friday morning and afternoon, and it stays windy even into our Saturday afternoon here, although finally calming down by then, and Sunday definitely should be much nicer. All right, again, I know I'm sorry I'm talking fast, but unfortunately, as I mentioned, got places to be. So, excessive rainfall outlook today. Again, highest chance up through the Appalachia chain of Virginia, West Virginia, into the Poconos, and into portions of eastern Ohio here. Could definitely see a little bit more rain than you might like to, and could cause some isolated flash flooding, but all things considered, not nearly as big of a flooding threat that we saw, or compared to what we saw in Louisiana, Texas, Mississippi, and Alabama the past couple of days. Tomorrow, same thing, again, small area, but enough that we need to mention the chance of some significant rainfall that could cause some flash flooding from Maine and into northern New Hampshire during our Friday afternoon. All right, final map I'll show you. Again, if you thought we were done, well, hate to tell you, 5 days out, we already have an enhanced risk, which is the highest possible risk that the Storm Prediction Center can issue this far out, from Oklahoma City back down towards Topeka and into the Red River Valley. So, again, just be ready. We're not done yet. We're going to do it all again in 5 days, starting out into the plains. This storm system, though, I will mention, I think has less chance of kind of crossing east. In fact, it'll probably pull north pretty quick. So if there is any kind of good news, there is definitely that with, again, this next area of storms to worry about. Alrighty, so talked about a lot today. I think I'll probably still get to school on time, so that's definitely good news. Definitely going to kind of rush my way out the door here, but I do appreciate y'all hanging in there. And again, as I mentioned, do not let your guard down, even if you're only in that marginal risk right now for severe weather. And in fact, they might have already updated it by the time you're watching this. But either way, again, it could be a dangerous day ahead for a lot of folks that might have not thought so this time yesterday. Alrighty, have a great rest of your Thursday. Stay safe out there, and I'll see you all tomorrow.